Welcome to Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. What if you could learn from experienced real estate investors, find out what got them to where they are now, get insight into their daily habits, and take these insights to inspire your own growth? Each week, Jonathan Green shares an in-depth look at the mindful approach to real estate investing. Jonathan is a lifelong real estate investor, advisor, and coach, as well as the founder and team leader of Streamlined Properties. Whether you're looking to start from scratch, get to the next level, or just for a straightforward and honest approach to real estate investing, Jonathan seeks to provide a free mentorship program you can take with you anywhere. Now, here's Jonathan.
Let's talk dirt today. I mean, dirt meaning land and land flipping. But how my guest got to land flipping is a really interesting story. It goes from a family business to a wholesale and house flipping business for somebody else to figuring all of the things that he needed to do, but he did this because he had to. Let's talk to the landman, Clay Hepler. Let's go. This is episode 154 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Clay Hepler. Clay started out thinking he was going to build a rental portfolio. Things changed and he turned to land flipping. Now he is the CEO of Landman. Clay, welcome to the show.
Jonathan, it is a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you. I was saying before, we've done some land flipping shows, but we haven't done one in a while. So it's a nice give back for the audience. Let's start, though, before that. You first got into real estate not thinking about land, but what led you to real estate in general?
It's funny, you and I were talking about this briefly beforehand, right? And what brought me to real estate was this law of accident, right? I dropped out of college and joined a family business. We were selling chocolate, high-end chocolate, learned sales and marketing. And along the way, like any normal, young college-age kid, I was looking through my social media, right? And I started to see, right, hey, you got to read this book. Hey, Bigger Pockets, read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, learn how to invest in real estate, Brandon Turner. And so I started to learn that real estate was a way, and as Bigger Pockets pitches it, the ultimate way to build wealth without any headaches, without any hassles. You're never going to have any difficulties or issues. And I said, oh my gosh, it's going to be so easy to make money in real estate. Right. And so I what happened was I said,
you bought that jar of Kool-Aid there.
You know what? I drank that thing and I was choking on it. What everyone said, right? I did exactly what everyone said. I went and found someone that knew it. Okay. So I went to my local city and I left the family business because I said, hey, I want to go out and do this on my own. And I joined this guy, probably like 500-ish units, 400, 500 units. Never really knew, but he was a mom and pop guy and just started acquiring these properties before the Bigger Pockets craze, right?
Yeah.
Right after 2009 and 2010. So he just bought all these units at amazing bases and just cash flowed them. And I joined this company, learned about real estate, blocking of tackling of real estate, and then got into saying, hey, we should produce another revenue stream in this business. And the revenue stream was what everyone talks about, wholesaling and house flipping, right? And so I built this business, this house flipping business, and I was the acquisitions, the marketing, putting it all together. We did 75 flips in our first year. So we were full bore right away. And that's how I got into real estate. I learned from someone else. I used someone else's dime to really learn the business and went all in and built out that sales and marketing business.
Yeah, a couple things though, because we were talking about, education before and dropping out of college. Did you feel like you had something to prove or did you just feel like that's the best decision? Because, I think it's a good decision for a lot of people right now as it's not providing the value that it used to be. So how did that feel? And is that what motivated you even more? Or are you just generally hyper motivated?
Yeah, that's a great question. I wish I could say that I had this crazy chip on my shoulder that drove me to be super motivated. In reality, I got hurt and I was a college lacrosse player. I got hurt and that really destroyed my ego. The career path that I thought I wanted to get into, which was working for the State Department, the government, the state service, I said, I don't want to do this. And so the two things that my identity was wrapped around at that point were just obliterated. And so I said, I'm just going to take a semester off to recalibrate and to figure out what should I do. And that semester ended up being longer and longer and longer. And I said, why would I ever go back to school when I go to school and I hear from someone who doesn't have any skin in the game and has only learned from books about what the political theory between the US and Colombia was in 1932. And I didn't feel any relevancy of that in my personal life. And so I was like very practical and pragmatic about it. This doesn't make any sense to me. I don't want to spend $65,000 a year because my parents couldn't afford college, so I had to pay for it. And so I just made an economic calculation of I'm not going to pay this, and I'm going to go and join a family business and see if I can make a name for myself.
Yeah, and I also feel like if you're someone who's really motivated and young and you're just sitting in lectures all the time about topics, especially in the first 2 years of college, that like you're not going to use this, you're not going to be a historian. I liked philosophy, but I wasn't going to become a philosopher. I would still take the class again, but I don't know that I'd pay, $65,000 to take it when I could just, watch a master class on it. So you must have had something in you that wanted to get to success quickly, right?
100%. So in 2008, 2009, my father was actually in real estate. We don't really talk about it that much because I think it's a pretty prickly point in our family. But he was in like Class C strip malls, and he got obliterated by, I keep using that word, I normally don't, but in 2008, 2009, by the financial crisis. And we lost everything. We lost the home that I grew up in. We had to move into a rental house, and life wasn't as peachy as it once was. And so I feel like I had that inbuilt financial desire to make money because I saw how much it destroyed my family, the relationships in our lives, our ability to do the things that we could do. When I was younger, I was in a much better financial position. Life is just better when you have money in America. Period.
Yeah. And I mean, it's interesting, though, that you thought real estate when that was kind of the catalyst for the downfall as well. But you must have seen something inside of real estate that meant you could make it back.
Yeah, I think that what I saw was just naivete. I don't think that I analyzed it any further than here's a way for me to make money. I'm hungry, right? Like, when you're 19 years old or 20 years old, like my brain is not fully developed at that point. So I just said, I'm just going to do this because everyone else says I'm making money, and I'm just going to follow this blindly. And I followed it blindly. And that's what brought me to, joining that family business, the real estate investment business, and getting into the real estate world.
Yeah, I mean, looking back, I think you made a really smart choice, and I think it can help other people who are young and motivated to know, like, go to someone who's done it before. Because you got into wholesaling, but you're not one of these kids now who's just like, hey, I'm going to start a wholesaling business from scratch. I don't know anything. I don't know how to do repair values. You went to somebody who had tools and skill sets and properties and added what you can learn from them with books, podcasts, and all the other things. Is that something that helped you think kind of move quicker than normally?
100%. I think it's cliche, but it's cliche because it's true. And people don't want to do the work. They don't want to make someone else wealthy. And now that I'm on the other end of the spectrum, I have employees underneath me, and I understand the value of investing in people. So don't just blindly go out there. And I didn't blindly go out there and just found the first person I talked to, right?
But hey, you sell real estate, let's go to work.
I saw an opportunity, and I assessed it, and I said, this is as good as opportunity that I think I can get at this point. And so I'm going to jump fully into it. And so people, though, when you're younger, even if you're late 20s, 30s, if you're trying to get into a business, it's so much better to go and play full out and help another person get wealthy and get wealthy along the way than it is to like try to start this wholesale business. I mean, you should have seen, John, like how many people applied to the position of my acquisition manager that had wholesale businesses that failed.
Yeah.
It's 75% of the people, 80%.
Right. Yeah. And that's the backwards thing. You could go create this, and of course we'll get into the whole land flipping, but because you started from learning from others and helping others, I do think you're really right on point about that people don't want to help others have success because they feel like, well, I want it all. But like, if you don't know anything, why wouldn't you help someone and learn? That's the trade-off. Like, you have to learn. You can't just, read one book and be like, oh, I'm good to flip houses. No problem.
Yeah, there's this obsession with scale. And I like went into this when I was younger. I was really like obsessed with this idea of scale and like, oh, I can do this whole thing by myself and whatever. I don't care what anyone else says on these podcasts or YouTube videos. Like, I'm going to do it. And I realized like I'm hopelessly inadequate in so many categories that I require other people. And you're even more hopelessly inadequate when you're younger and you don't know shit.
Yeah.
You don't know shit. And you pretend like watching something on YouTube or listening to a podcast or reading a book is going to give you the actual skills that is required to build a business. Not only the skills, right? What's almost just as important, if not more important, is the mindset, the ability to bear the stress that you have when you're building a business. It is crippling. And so go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. No, I mean, mindset specifically, I think what people want is such a quick fix, especially when they're younger, that it's like, they'll send out one postcard and they're like, oh, well, fuck it, this doesn't work. It's like, bro, you have to do that for 6 months to even get a sniff. You can't give up. But I feel like everybody, not necessarily young people, I think people who are just looking for something that's quicker, they turn to real estate because it does look good. But then they think, they're going to make one call and someone's going to be like, oh, yeah, you're a wholesaler. I'd love to sell you my property at a grave discount and then also help you make more money. It's kind of silly, right?
It is so silly. And the problem is that the people who talk about this, you have to understand what the positioning of the reason why we get all this information is because we're being sold the bill of goods of the ease because that person is trying to sell me some course, some education, and they don't really care about me. They're not really invested. They're not really, and they don't have a business either. What happens is you have a business, it gets hard, and you hit a point. Maybe it's $1 million, $2 million. For a lot of these wholesaling and house flipping businesses, that's where it is. Maybe it's $750,000. I have a couple of VAs working for me, John. I have a couple of, maybe an acquisition person, and I'm making $100,000 a year. And you know what? I think that I'm going to start an education company. And this is what everyone does because it's so much easier in education. And if you don't have the actual ability and the resume to do that, which is what most people do, they sell this bill of goods and someone buys a $10,000 course and they don't have the results that they want and they flood the marketplace with unsophisticated people which bid up prices. And then
Great point. That's a great point because I do always talk about that kind of novices who are paying too much. They figured out either a way to get money. That's a really good point, though, because they're turned out thinking that they know something. They really don't know anything. So they're actually putting the prices up. For us, we're all looking at it like, that's the stupidest deal I've ever seen. Why would anyone pay that for the thing? They don't know any better. They took a shiny object, put down some money and think they're going to replicate these strategies that were done 50 years ago, which, again, some of them are still good. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. But yeah, I agree. I don't think they're well suited for it because they don't have real life experience.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And the problem is when you apply what worked, and this is really prevalent in the land business. A lot of the educators in the land business, like when I got in, they're working with playbooks that are 5, 10, 15 years ago that they used. And every market matures over time. Competition matures it. Interest rate matures it. And these people are using the same playbooks. And it requires actual business acumen to win at land or to win at multifamily or to win at wholesaling or any specific asset class in real estate. That's what is required. Sales expertise, understanding what actually matters in that specific business, because every business has certain lever points that are more important. But you got to make sure that whomever you're working with, if you want to get into a business, whether it's multifamily, single family, whatever it is, that they are eating their food, the food that they're serving you. They're still eating it.
Yeah, I like that you use the word win also, because in competitive environments where there's low inventory, you do have to win. That means your professionalism or the way that you present yourself or the way that you have your funds organized or the way that you interact with the seller off market or the agent who's representing the property can help you win properties. I know this from my own business that that's really where it is. And that's where the people skills also, make a difference. I do feel like there's a lot of things out there that people think they can do solely online, but you're just not going to, you still have to learn stuff in real life to understand what you're doing online. Do you agree with that?
Oh my gosh. Absolutely. I mean,
I was like, oh shit, he's going to say no.
No, absolutely. Because the repetition shows us where we are wrong. And it requires so many repetitions of a certain task. I had this conversation with this real estate broker. They didn't call me back. If I'm trying to list a property on the market and I'm a wholesaler, why did they not call me back? I'm going to call another one. Why didn't this one call me back? I'm going to call another one. After you call 100 brokers, you can put together your own playbook of this is how I talk to a real estate broker.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is. And you can't just get the playbook from another person. You can get that the core playbook, and then you have to take that and apply it to your own position, what you're doing in your business.
Yeah, I would relate that to scripting a lot. And I'm sure you experienced this as an acquisitions manager for a large sale, wholesale flipping company. I was reading something on Bigger Pockets the other day, and someone said, well, I got this script from Sean Terry. And I'm like, well, I mean, the script is fine, but did you make it your own? Do you even know who you're calling with the script? Does your list that you built match the script that you're talking about? The script was idiotic. It was basically just like blah blah blah. I wonder if you're interested in selling a property, and thinking like over and over that's going to make the call. Have you found that there's a big difference in scripting and then, like you said, putting it into play, making it your own, and getting the reps to know like, well, that thing where I say that everybody tunes out, I have to adjust that instead of just reading the same thing over and over?
We adjust our script on a monthly basis.
Yeah, it's great.
And we get feedback from sellers. This is what works here. Here's a perfect example. When you ask a seller for price, what do you think is a fair price for this property? We found that most people are going to say, I don't know. What are you going to offer me? Of course, right? They're going to deflect. And so the way that we get price is we do not directly ask them, for example, for land, right? We will ask them, okay, so if you sell this property, are you just going to buy another piece of land in the area? And they'll say, no, I'm not going to buy another piece of land. And you say, okay, it sounds like you have plans for this money. Well, I might be putting an addition on my house. I might be going to Vegas. I might be bending all black. I might be buying a new Corvette, whatever it is. Then from there, you can extract the actual number. So a new Corvette is what, 75,000? Yeah, 75,000. And you need to get all of that through the land sale, or do you have other savings, right? And so what we're doing here is we're finding other ways to get the motivation, the price, the core pillars so that we can craft an offer to sell and get this deal under contract. And so we are doing that because we are doing that in our business. And we know that people are getting more resistant. And so we are constantly changing our script, constantly listening to your calls, constantly listening to my acquisition guys' calls, and giving them feedbacks of changing up. Is a lead manager supposed to be in this role? Who should our lead manager call? What cadence should they call these people? That is a monthly thing. And if you're not willing to do that, you can't build a massive real estate business.
Yeah, I'm going to transition to how you got into land, but just specifically for the script that you were using there, that is so perfect for land, but some people may misinterpret it as thinking the reason that applies so well to land is because most land is paid off. It's not going to be generally huge value. So they're not looking at Zillow saying like, hey, this dirt trap is, has a Zestimate of 80,000. They have no clue, and there's no comps that they can find to do it. Whereas if you're calling on houses, your script's going to be different because they say, well, I look on Zillow, it's 450. And you're like, well, I mean, I've been by your house. It's a dump. But that's a big difference for land, though. You're really backing into what do they want the money for, which is the motivation to sell you the property.
That's exactly right. And with land versus houses, another perfect example, John, is that house is high intent, right? Normally, the reason why someone is selling us a house, whether for a wholesale discount, is that there's high intent because they need to use it for something else in their life. They have distress, divorce, death, distress, some other form of distress with, I need to get a new furnace, a new roof, I'm behind on taxes, foreclosure, whatever. With land, it's totally different. It's very low intent, right, in terms of low motivation. And so what we need to do is we need to craft the offer, the motivation, the deal killers all around what we can do for them and what the land is going to do for them versus focusing on the actual inbuilt distress that's within the house. The house is the pain, whereas land, it's not the house that's the pain. It's actually all the external things that we're trying to solve by selling the land. And that's a little different.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the script for land is like, what are you doing with it? It's just sitting there. Do you think it's going to appreciate from 10,000 to 500,000? It's not. Like, why don't you let us take it off your hand and make use of it, right? I mean, a lot of people are like, yeah, I mean, I guess I'd sell it, or they don't even know they own it. There's plenty of people. Have you found people who just have no idea? Oh yeah, I think I do own that tract. They just don't know. Land is a real oddity compared to houses.
It is. I think that the emotional attachment, which is what you're referring to, I don't really know this. I don't really visit it. The emotional attachment is just absolutely not there. There's no sentimental attachment unless it was granddaddy's name. Great granddaddy's land, and we got the
or attached. It's next to a house. The house was sold. Well, this is all I have left, and you're like, well, okay,
right? Exactly.
Yeah. Hey, it's Jonathan. On this brief interlude, I want to give you an update because our new website has launched. zenandtheartofrealestateinvesting.com is live, and you can go there and check it out. I really want you to go check it out because we're going to still be upgrading more, but it's going pretty well so far. This is a very guest-focused podcast website. Each guest has their own profile with their own links to our 10-minute clips on YouTube, and also links to the episode. You can search for guests using the alphabet, or you can search in the search bar. Soon we're going to have tags up as well so that you can search in certain categories: short-term rentals, mid-term rentals, syndicators, multifamily, and then you'll be able to link to the episodes on that. I have really put a lot of time into working with my team to get this website to be extremely visitor-friendly and very guest-friendly. I hope you enjoy it. At zenandtheartofrealestateinvesting.com, let's get back to the show. So yeah, let's talk land flipping, because I know you started out thinking we were going to get into rental properties, but you made a pivot because of what was going on in your life. How did you think land though first? Because you were there operating in 75 flips for somebody. How did land come into the fold?
For sure. So, but after the first year and first year and a half, what happened was myself and the gentleman that owned the company, we split up, right? And we just had a different, all amicable, but ended up splitting up. And I went out and did my own thing and started buying apartment buildings, right? I started doing the BRRRR process, apartment buildings, the bigger pockets.
You're back on that. You're back on a new Kool-Aid there. You took up the blue one this time.
Right. So, buying deals and everything looks good when you put it in a spreadsheet.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. You can make those spreadsheets look very good. And
you can make it look good and bad with just one change of a number.
Yeah. And what happens is in real life, sometimes that change of a number is compound and all of your properties have the change of a number.
Yeah. Very good point again.
And so what happens is when you're buying real estate, there's a lot of factors that we do not know or consider when we don't have experience in it. So the type of real estate I was buying was 1900, 1920, 1890 vintage buildings, which have way more CapEx. And so when you listen to the bigger pockets crowd that I invest in, Arkansas, I invest in, some other relatively new city that has a new housing stock, the CapEx, the expenses is way different than if you're investing in older buildings in Chicago, in Pittsburgh, in New York, Philadelphia, whatever. And so all these CapEx things all of a sudden start to hit 40,000, 20,000, 50,000, new roof, new sewer line. And all of a sudden your cash flow that you thought you were going to be retiring on gets extinguished. overnight.
Yeah, and the more units that you have, the more issues that are going to come up. 10 units is a bigger roof. That's a good point though, because I think you just don't know things, and a lot of times it's not really anybody's fault in the beginning. But if you buy a 10 unit and it's built in 1910, you may not know much about structural problems in there. You just may not have the wherewithal to notice it, and your regular commercial inspector just may be hammering out a job and say, here's something to look at in the future. But hey, it turns up. And you made another good point, though, because if you have multiple properties or multiple units, one issue on one property could capsize your cash flow on all of the units, because you've leveraged them all together. So you're counting on this is how much cash flow together I'll make. Then you need like a giant, you have oil tanks or something, and there's a major issue at one property. It affects all the other properties that you're holding.
That's right. And so the cash flow is very fragile in these properties. Particularly when you're in when you have below 100 units and you have a professional property management company managing them, that erodes your profits too, right?
Yeah,
All of the maintenance overrides and stuff like that really destroys your profits. And so I knew at that point that I need to find a different way to produce cash flow, right? True active cash flow, real money. And I was at that point thinking, hey, I'm going to move to Colorado. And because my wife is originally from Colorado, from Denver, and we were thinking about moving there, we bought a house, Airbnb, nightmare, but bought this house and we thought we were going to move to it, right? It was in the Rocky Mountains, idyllic, but ended up being not super idyllic. And we were like, hey, I needed to build a remote-based business. And at that point, I had a limiting mindset around building a wholesaling and house flipping company that was remote. I don't know why I did, but I just did. And so I said I needed to have something that was relatively transferable. All the skills that I had already in real estate, that I could transfer them. And land flipping was very, very easy transfer because it was all of the same sales processes, marketing processes. This is how you touch sellers. This is how you build a land flipping business. Was very similar to house flipping. And I also saw and knew that, like, if you go to your local RIA, what are they talking about? Self-storage, multifamily, house flipping, wholesaling. Never heard about land.
Yeah. It's not no one talks about it. I run meetups. Not a single person talks about it unless they've heard it on my podcast.
Exactly. And so I saw it and I'm like, there is a blue ocean here. There is a blue ocean that no one's talking about, and I want to get ahead of the curve. And so I went all into land investing, not because of all these unfortunate things with my real estate investment business. What happened was I got a call from my wife the day before Thanksgiving, and her company went under. And she was the breadwinner. I was the guy that was running out there and buying these multifamily properties and saying, hey, look at me, I got another 15 units. And my wife was the person who was actually holding down the fort financially. And we got a call. This was 2022, the day before Thanksgiving. And she basically said, hey, lost my job. I don't know what to do. And she was hysterically crying. And my stomach just dropped. I said, that's what I said. I didn't know what to say. And I needed to produce this revenue. And so I went and researched, and that's how I learned about land flipping, because I had to pay for my wedding. We had to pay for our life. We had to manage this Airbnb in Colorado. It was a nightmare. And so I said, I got to figure out some way to make money. I can't just do it with a W-2 job because I had too many big expenses coming up. And so I said, I had to create a business, and I'm going to do it with land flipping.
Yeah. Was there any one thing that pointed you to land, like to start?
I think that the one thing that pointed me to land was I saw the opportunity.
Blue ocean, right?
It's the blue ocean. And it still is a blue ocean relative to all the other niches in real estate. And that's what made me excited. No one's talking about this. No one's doing this. And I could come in there and blow the doors off. I think it's still wide open, and I think it will remain wide open because there's just land everywhere. Obviously I'm in New Jersey, so there's not a ton of land. We're the densest state, but land exists just like houses exist everywhere. And I think it's not an easy pivot though, because you seem like a very good talker. So I think you can make that pivot easy. But for these people that we were talking about before who are used to just using a script on land is going to be different and very, you're not getting as many screw you responses for land. You're getting more like, oh, do I own this piece of land? It's a much different like person to person dialogue. I think, when you're marketing heavy for wholesaling, you get as many screw off, don't ever mail me, how'd you get my number calls. And I don't think that happens as much in land flipping am I right? It depends on what type of offers you give. So in land, it's very common to send offers with a offer on it, and that pisses people off to no degree. So you offered me 20 cents on the dollar, 30% cents on the dollar, and they're calling you and telling you how big of a piece of shit you are. So trust me, there's plenty of those.
I love those calls though, because I think they're very pivotable. It's like, I got you on the phone, so now let's talk about it. It's just if you know pivoting and dialogues and persuasion and things like that, you can really start to turn the conversation. Is that why you send the lower offers on land? Also, because it's a lot, almost all is just vacant land that you're offering on, right? There's nothing there. So there's not really like a big loss. So you can't really quantify it as a low ball because, as we were saying before, there's not a ton of metrics out there for you to just value land online as just a regular person.
That's right. I think the reason why we are taught to offer a range or a straight up offer is because most people who are running land businesses are solar operators. And so they don't want to send out a neutral letter like you would send out, hey, I see your house at 123 Main Street. Are you interested in selling? They would rather pre-qualify the person through the mail. And that's what the mail does. That's what the offer does. The low offer gets the people that say F you, and the low offer gets the people that say, hey, I would be interested. And so really it's a pre-qualification mechanism. Like you're sending out these soldiers to pre-qualify your sellers with the mail versus like anything other than that. And so that's what I think it's a marketing call to action piece versus anything else.
Yeah, I want to. You've done so many calls because obviously you're doing wholesale calls before, so I want to get your take on this. I've always said that a screw you call is just as good as every other call. Nobody's really calling back if they don't have an inkling to sell the property. They just want to air their grievances at you. But if that phone rings, they want to sell the property. It may not be on that first call, but if you keep working at it and try to pivot that conversation, I think there's a deal there. I mean, I've seen it happen for myself for sure.
Right. What the point of direct mail is, and this comes directly from Dan Kennedy's No BS Guide to Direct Mail. Dan Kennedy's an incredibly famous direct marketer. It's not just a yes, I'm going to sell today, which direct mail does have. It's a way for you to fill up your funnel so you can retarget, remarket to these people over the next 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 years that you're in business. So I welcome the hey, screw you calls because we're very polite, we're very professional, and we say, hey, we're not going to reach out to you if you're really not that interested, or I want 6,000 an acre and I can only give you 1,000 an acre. Okay, no problem. And then reach out to them in 3-6 months because we already have the relationship with them because they've called in and offered us consent.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think it's a way of getting people to raise their hand. And I think, people who do more spray and pray marketing in other areas, I don't think that they're tightening up their lists. For land, you don't really have a lot to go on. So if the land's there and it's vacant and you're running these lists, I don't think that it hurts as much in other areas like you're oversending to just send it to everyone and see who raises their hand. I don't think that philosophy is great for houses because I think you can build lists the wrong way and just spend a lot into the drain. What do you think about that?
So when it comes to land, there's a variety of different things that we scrub for. Akin to you scrubbing for, hey, I want to stack these lists so that I have someone that's tax delinquent, pre-foreclosure, probate, all those things, right? That would be like, oh my gosh, it's the hottest list that there possibly is. Well, when it comes to land, we use a series of scrubbing processes to pre-qualify leads that we would never buy. Something that's in a floodplain, something that's like a swamp, something that's on the side of a hill, all these things that are non-buildable, unattractive, which can really reduce our total marketing spend. And so we can cut 20, 30% of people. Also, a lot of times, if you own a piece of land in X county, Trenton County, I don't know if that's a county in New Jersey, Trenton County, let's just say.
You own it's in Mercer County.
Okay, Mercer County, got it. Mercer County, New Jersey, Summit County, New Jersey. There you go, there's one. Summit County, New Jersey, you might own another piece of land. And so what we'll do is we'll scrub out duplicates and focus on the most valuable piece of land and reach out to that person for that piece of land. And every call, we're saying, hey, do you have another piece of land that you would consider selling? And so what that does is we can strategically and tactfully reduce our total direct mail budget 20, 30, 40% every time we mail because we're scrubbing beforehand.
Yeah, that's smart advice for anybody. I believe much more in micro marketing. I want to target either the properties or the land that I really want to get because it has the best value. I think when you don't do that and you just use a company and you build it, okay, 10 years held or something like that, and just send it. Yeah, you said you could have 10% that are going off the side of a cliff and not usable or already have spills or swampland, and that's just wasted money.
A lot of time, and I'm just as guilty of this as anyone, we infer volume equals success, and
Yeah.
success equals success. Results equals success. And spray and pray marketing, like you're saying, versus targeted, maybe I get out 15,000, 20,000, 30,000 mailers, but you might get out 2,500, but they're to the most valuable parcels that you possibly
Right.
could target in a more intentional and personalized way. And that's how you win.
Yeah, I agree. I'm all micro. I think it makes much more sense. And if, especially if you're just starting, even if you're starting something that you want to build bigger and you're the acquisitions person, if you're getting on all those calls, you'll realize real quickly with spray and pray that you've made a mistake because those calls are terrible. And then when you go on the in person appointments, they're even worse. You're not qualifying me, show up. They want 400,000 more than it's worth. You're like, I drove an hour and a half for this. That's just bad use of your time. And if you keep doing that over a year, you can't have success because you've minimized your time by over marketing. And again, like you said, the metrics may say, hey, your return call rate is really good, but you're not closing anything.
That's right. So I think about our land business or our house flipping business as a conveyor belt, right? And so if you think about like Henry Ford, and he talked about this all the time, the far left side, the beginning of the conveyor belt are raw materials. And so they're the least valuable and least expensive materials. As they move through the process, a seller receives our offer, right? And they call in. They become disproportionately more expensive for us because it requires our salesperson's time, and disproportionately more costly in terms of our marketing spend because leads that are qualified that come in, they cost money, right? Our cost per lead is increased if we have more people that are calling in, right? In certain respects. And so if we can filter out people on the raw side, the raw data side more and more, that means that we can get a higher return on our ad spend, which means that we can increase our ability to scale quicker because our marketing dollars go further. And that's something that's really helpful to consider when you're thinking about, hey, should I scale, like send out a bunch of mail versus sending out more targeted mail? What really matters is your return on ad spend because that enables you to move quicker and build a more profitable business.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I think you're kind of whittling down business principles for everyone. And I think that a lot of people who are even motivated, they get in and they're trying to replicate a system that someone else did, which is okay because systems work, but they don't make it their own and they're not doing this monthly feedback loop, which I think is probably really helping you. You're saying like, okay, that postcard we sent out is getting a lower callback rate. Maybe we adjusted the cadence or something in there wrong. That's something you're reviewing all of those marketing materials each month to see which one's trending up and which one's trending down.
That's exactly right. It's all fun to just blast out marketing, but if you're not getting feedback on, hey, we A/B test every single piece of mail that we send. And we have reference codes for every single piece of mail. We have battles between, does this work? Does this work? Should we change this line? Should we change this line? Should we change the outside? Should we change the outside? Inside? How do we make sure that there's more people that are calling this? And direct mail is not like Google Ads. The feedback loop is a lot longer. But the most important thing is like, what happens is someone will say, okay, I'm going to track KPIs. I'm going to track KPIs. And then they get to like, I'm going to put purple mailers and I'm going to make this like sparkles on the outside and like a genie's going to drop it in the mailbox and it's going to be this big thing. And so they swing to the other end. And so there's a maturity in simplicity. And so when you're building out your marketing campaigns and tracking your KPIs, simple scales. Simple is smart. And so maybe tracking one or two different mailers and not making 15 a month, that would really help you scale as well.
Yeah, and I think specifically with direct mail, it's very hard to quantify what those real results are because you don't know if somebody calls you after 3 months, it may be because they like the first postcard and they kept it. There's no metric that something on it that they touched the postcard and then that they've opened the postcard and didn't throw it, in the garbage right away. So that's kind of you're using the KPIs that are available to you, but that there's more going on. you could have an 80% read rate and not know it and then stop after 3 months. And if you went 6 months, you're going to get a big return. What's your cadence for, I've always said, like, you have to mail 6 months or you're just dead. You're just going to like piss all the money away. What are you doing, and how did you set that up in the beginning to know, like, hey, we're not going to stop after 2 months if it doesn't work. We're going to rework, but keep hitting the lists that keep raising their hands.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we've done postcards, we've done more expensive mailers, we've done regular mailers. We send a piece of mail every 2 months, not every 6 months, because we send out a lot.
No, I meant like consecutively once a month for 6 months. Sorry.
Right. So
6 total hits to get the response from someone.
We send 6 as well. Yeah, that's if we're targeting a county, we're going to send 6 pieces of mail.
You're sending 6 in 12 months.
That's right.
Right. Perfect. Yeah. It was a study that they mailed postcards consecutively, and between 6 and 8 months on a monthly mail. It was a fake real estate company. This was an on-market thing. It was like a company that didn't exist. And by 6 or 8 months, people were saying, "Oh yeah, I know that company. They're great." Like, no, it doesn't exist. So that's really like that. That's the thing, though. I think people say like, "Hey, I've got this amount of money to spend," and then they blow it all in the first month, and thinking that, well, you're not doing any follow-up. You don't even have any call follow-up routine set up. Because if you do a mass mailer or spray and pray, you need to be ready for those calls, right? I think a lot of people just put their cell phone on, hope for the best, and then the calls come in, and half are bad, half are good, and then they're already buried in the first week.
Right. The consistency is what separates people from I'm going to make a $250,000 my first year. I'm going to make 50,000. I'm going to make 100,000. I'm going to make $1 million my first year. It's really the consistency. I can spend X amount this month on the first of the month or the 15th of the month, whatever it is. I'm going to send out X amount of mailers, and I'm going to keep it consistent. It's always better to do fewer, more targeted, as you and I have been discussing, and keep it consistent over time than overload and say, I'm going to send 10,000. I'm going to wait. Then in 3 months, I'm going to send another 10,000. I'm going to wait. Instead of saying, I'm going to send 5,000 a month, and it's going to be very consistent, very targeted, because that also allows you to say, okay, I can expect to have this amount per month. And then you can go really, really deeper and know how long does it take my mailers to convert? How much money am I making per mailer? And if you have consistent outbound marketing, you can have consistent predictability of your results.
Yeah, and I think people just forget that it takes a lot. You may send a postcard at a time that's good for you, but they may not respond to it until it's a time that's good for them. That could be a year later. They could still be holding the postcard. You just don't know. And I feel the same about social media. I don't use social media the way that others do, like so grabby and shiny. But I think that someone on my on-market business, I'm 100% sure people can follow you for a year. You have no idea that they're even following you. And then they just DM you and they're like, want to do a deal. So like all of these things are very similar in terms of what you're saying about consistency. Like if you just keep putting it out there, you still have to be available for that return so you can get it when they're hot, because maybe they're getting more, a couple more mailers. If you're mailing them, someone else is surely mailing them.
Yeah. And I tell my sales guys that on average, every 3 to 6 months, a life event happens in someone's life. Period. You might move, you might have a call you might get married, you might get engaged, you might have your kid graduate college. And if you have a massive funnel of people that are in your internals, in your CRM, and you call them every 3 to 6 months, you're not a dick. You're like an actual real person that has a rapport with this person. You're a good person. You say, hey, what's going on? It's August. Happy 15th of August. Whatever you want to use to get this person's attention. If you call them every 3 to 6 months, you're really setting yourself up to build the brand, just like when we send out our postcards every month or 2 months, like you were saying, you build the brand of, oh, I know Hepler Land Holdings, right? Yeah. I know them because they first sent me 6 mailers in a row. And then when I went into their system, I wasn't ready, but they called me for a year and I'm going to sell to them because I have a relationship with them.
Yeah. And those two go together great also, though. When you're combining this print marketing with the calls, then it doubles up the time. It's like, oh, wait, okay. Yeah, they were nice. They weren't douchebags when they called, which is a plus because, again, a lot of people are running scripts and they just sound like a robot. Or they're using VAs, which I like VAs. I think they're useful in a lot of ways. But I think if you're calling local owners of properties, VAs do not do a good job if they're not familiar with the area. You have to be able to say like, oh, I know that area. Even if you're doing virtual, you need to like study the streets on Google or have been there just to make sure you can, have that dialogue and say like, hey, yeah, we bought a piece of land 2 doors down. Did you know this guy? And they're like, oh, actually, yeah, that's my cousin. Great. Now they know that you're in the area.
I used to run my business exclusively on virtual assistants, and people do it all the time in land and have very successful businesses. There is nothing that replaces a local US-based salesperson. The ability to understand the dialect, to connect with the seller, to have the same language, it's unbeatable. And you can have double, triple results. My US-based acquisition person is twice or 3 times as good as my really good virtual assistant acquisition person because he understands nuances. He can really build rapport and talk about gospel music or talk about the Yankees in 1986 or whatever it is to establish rapport versus someone that's from a different country.
Yeah, but that's a great. It's a corollary. I think both can work, and I think like we were saying, if you do spray and pray, it works. You just have to have a bigger operation to make it work. It's the same thing as spray and pray. You're trying to get them to contact more people, but I just agree. If you're going micro and you want to get better appointments, if someone's local and literally lives in the area that they're calling, you're unstoppable. Because there's going to be so many virtual calls that don't know anything and are just reading scripts that if you can separate yourself. And in another way, as you were saying, hey, look, we're the ones who just call you every 3 months. We're not always going to hassle you about the property. We're just going to see how you're doing. You'll get the call when the time comes. And that's something that I think most people are savvy to VAs, whether they're in the US or out of the US. They just know they're on a cadence because when someone's reading a script. I mean, I don't think anyone's like not figured this one out yet.
Right. And the question is, what pertaining to the virtual companies and the VAs, do you want to have a reactive or proactive business? Proactive business is the hyper-targeted, micro, building rapport, building relationships. I know this street. I know John down by the street. I have the rapport, the local knowledge. The reactive is I'm going national. I'm going completely virtual. That's a really stressful business. I've done both.
And it can work. It's good. I mean, you need more money to do the second one, the reactive one. And if you have the money to burn, like go for it. But I think a lot of people are always trying to find a way in, like you were when you were getting in, and you have to figure out like, well, I don't want to spend 20 grand in my first month because somebody in a class told me to. I want to be like a little bit more careful. I think that people can start with if you called like the best list that you could and just made a list of 100, if you didn't have a ton of money and just focused on mailing the 100 and calling the 100, I bet they would have more success than people who just start off and spray and pray for 1 month and then give up.
I completely agree. When you don't have the resources to invest in marketing, the resource that you have to invest is your time. Yeah. And so the time that you invest in being more intentional, focusing on the micro markets and reaching out in that building that proactive business is more time up front. But on the back end, you might have a more successful business, and not only a more successful business, right? Successful in that it gets your time back. It gives you the freedom in life that you want, which is really why we're talking about this. Which is why we're on the podcast, which is why we listen to Bigger Pockets, which is why we build our businesses, because we want a better life. And a better life to me is not having to work 100 hours a week in a reactive business that I might be making $15 million versus a proactive business that I'm making $7 million in that's better, in my opinion.
Yeah. So as you scaled out this land business at Landman and then built out your part of it, like today, now, what's your role? I mean, are you still hopping on calls or have you fully had the staff do it so you have the time freedom? But I can tell you're still looking over everything, and that's how you manage a good business. And most people fail by not running a business. They create what they think is a business. They just don't run the business.
So yeah, there's this really sexy thought of, I'm going to scale out of my business.
I'd be bored. I don't scale out of any of my businesses. I like working too much. I enjoy it. It's fun for me.
It's so fulfilling. And getting in there, getting into the blocking and tackling of business is required. And the reason why people fail, I think, and I had peaks and valleys in my business is because I got out and then I had to get back in. And I got out and I had to get back in. And so this merry-go-round of back and forth and back and forth, really, I'm right now at this point in my business, I love the art of the deal. I love getting in there and getting on those calls. I don't really get on calls because I have a absolutely killer acquisition guy. I have 2 killer acquisition guys, but I'm there listening to their calls. We have weekly calls. We have daily huddles.
Yeah.
I'm getting on a call to review comps. I'm in the business. So in order to really build a profitable business, you got to be in it. You can't just scale yourself out of it. And so I'm just as active in the day-to-day. It's just my day-to-day looks a little bit more different. I'm taking more meetings. I'm focusing more on strategic vision, but I'm jumping in whenever we have a development deal that we're looking at, or we have a larger transaction, maybe a 6-figure transaction or 7-figure transaction. I'm going to run that because I have the confidence in myself to, dunk. I can dunk on those deals, and I like to dunk. And so why would I take myself off the floor like you if you like to dunk? We like to dunk. And so why would we scale ourselves out of the business?
It's too much fun.
Right.
Yeah, no, I think because people think scaling means, or they think that time freedom means they're just like sitting on a beach drinking Mai Tais. That's so boring. I don't want to do that. I like working and I like real estate. So I agree with you. But for both of us, like maybe what my time freedom looks like isn't what other people expect. I don't like going on vacation that much. I mean, I will, but my kids are older. So like I like to work, but I also, if I want to, eat lunch and hang out in a hammock for an hour, I just do that. That's time freedom to me. I'm controlling my schedule the way that I want. Is that something that you were thinking about? Like, because you're saying you don't want to scale out, then you get detached from the business and then you're basically doing property management and it's not going well.
That's right. That's exactly right. When you lose when your eye gets taken off the ball, you strike out, period. I am in a position that it still requires my focus in my mastermind community and in my real business to be present in the business. But I wouldn't want to be out of the business. I take great vacations, can take a weekend away a quarter or multiple weekends away a quarter, travel and live in different places. But like you said, like I like this stuff. Like one of the things that I love to do is invest in my people, in my business, like hype up my people, help them build wealth, whether it's virtual assistant or US based, or, in my community, invest in those people, help them take their life to the next level. That's what's really fulfilling. It's really fulfilling. And so another zero is really great. And I will tell you this, I'm not at the level that I can say, oh yeah, another zero is, perfectly fine. I will take it. I will definitely take it.
Yeah.
But at this point, I'm still very active, in other words, in my business.
Yeah. Awesome. As we wrap it up, tell us a little bit about Landman Accelerator, because I know that's a program that you have that helps other people learn how to do land flipping kind of the way that you started, right?
Yeah. So it is not the way I started, actually, because
the way you figured out. You don't want to take people into that. That's a good point.
So I left when I jumped into courses. I took courses when I got in. Of course, that's the way to get into business. Invest in your education. They left a lot to be desired, and the reason why is because a lot of them are conduits for, hey, I have a CRM to sell you. Hey, I have some other thing to sell you. And it's not really a community. It's like, here's the course, spend $5,000, $7,500, and there you go, right? There's no real community aspect to it. And this business is lonely. And so I built this business in the hardest year of my life, in the most difficult time to be in land. And this is my blueprint for this is exactly how I did it. This course is not going to be like the course that you take and it just helps you learn the business and that's it, right? This is a course to get you to 6 figures. This is a course to invest and help you get operational expertise, sales expertise, build teams, build an actual business, not create another job, build an actual business so that you can live life on your terms. And so the accelerator is launching. It will be launching in the middle of July. There will be a wait list, so you can go to my website and fill out a waitlist form to see if you're the right fit. There will be cohorts that we are going to be vetting people. This is not going to be your standard course. This is not going to be everyone can get in, because it needs to be people who are actually truly committed, because I'm taking time out of my business to invest in this course. So that's where you can find out more information on the course, and you can find me on social media as well to learn a little bit more about how I roll.
Yeah, and the course is at land-man.io, right?
That's right.
Yep. And then you on Instagram is just Clay Hepler.
That's right.
Awesome, man. Well, I really appreciate the time. One more thing before I let you go. You seem very much to me like someone who has no problem taking action. What do you think it is about you or the way that you were brought up that allows you to, I mean, taking action is hard for people. They just sit and fumble around and won't make decisions. How did you get to this point where you've made so many of these decisions, and they don't all have to be right ones, but you seem to be very able to just make a decision, go with it. Oh, that didn't work out. Let me pivot, do something else.
A feeling of crippling financial scarcity. And that has defined my drive. That has defined the reason why last year I was doing 80, 90-hour weeks every single week. And I still work incredibly hard because I refuse to have the life that my parents experienced. And I refuse to allow that for my child. I have a 10-week-old child at this point, and I refuse for him to have a life that he is not supported to be able to do what he needs to do in order to be successful.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate your time. Glad you got on the show. And I hope people just got another taste of land flipping and another way that land can be not necessarily an easy access point, but a different one when everybody is doing the other stuff. Appreciate it, man. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. All right. That was Clay Hepler. I'm Jonathan Green. We'll see you next episode. Wait, you have reached the end of the show. This is the part where you're going to get ready to check out, but I've actually changed this part. For over 120 episodes, you heard the same thing. Well, now I've changed it. I've thought about doing intros to the next episode, but I'm going to hold off on that for now. These are my pitches at the end. I've got nothing to sell you at all, but I do want to remind you that it really would help us if you support the podcast in the right way. All that means is subscribing to the podcast so you get it on Monday and Thursday, writing us a 5-star review if you believe that we deserve a 5-star review, sharing it with your friends, and being a participant in the Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing community. Soon there's going to be a new website launched. Maybe when you're listening to this, it's already going to be out there. That's where we're going to have collaboration. You're going to be able to see a lot from the guest. It is coming soon, and I just want to tell you, from me to you, I don't know how I got here, over 100 episodes. I'm so appreciative of you listening to the podcast and especially sticking around to hear this part. We'll see you next episode.